a standard cabin, a suite, because 30 years is a sweet occasion. We looked at each other after the pathology results, and we both already knew there is still an Alaska in our future. And Sue and I will be on a ship together, watching the glaciers, seeing the wildlife and all the other beautiful things that Alaska has to offer. And by that time, we will have earned it twice. I want to show you something today. This was our Alaskan cruise. This was our 7-night cruise, a suite on a brand new ship, a trip to Seattle, touring around both before and after the week, glaciers, wildlife, the exact week of our 30th wedding anniversary, the trip we'd been talking about for years. This was going to be the celebration of our lives together. And then cancer changed the plan. This is that story, and I promise you it's not just a story about a canceled trip. I need to tell you what this trip actually meant to us before I can tell you why we canceled it. Because if I skip past that part, you won't fully understand what the cancellation cost was and meant to us. Sue and I have been married 30 years this August. 30 years. 2 kids, grandchildren, careers, moves, challenges, all the things that a 30-year marriage contains that you can't fully explain to someone who just hasn't lived one. We're not people that take big trips. We're not people who spend lavishly on ourselves. 30 years of doing the responsible thing, saving and planning and prioritizing family. That means a trip like this wasn't something we took casually. This was an occasion, an event. 30 years deserves something extraordinary. We deserve something extraordinary. And, after 20 years of being in the Midwest, we thought Alaska felt like exactly that. So we planned it properly. A suite on the Princess Star, the newest ship in the Princess Cruise Line fleet. Not a standard cabin, a suite, because 30 years is a sweet occasion. We chose Alaska specifically because it represents everything we love about this great country of ours. The raw landscape, the wildlife, the beauty, the sense of being somewhere genuinely untouched. I had the whole itinerary mapped out and ready to go. Sue was excited in a way that I hadn't seen in a long time. That particular kind of excitement that comes from something you've been waiting a long time to do and finally being real and close enough to touch. That image of her, that excitement is something I kept coming back to in the weeks after we canceled it. I kept thinking about what I owed her, what 30 years deserved, what I wanted to be able to give her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you've watched our first 2 videos, you know what happened in early 2026. The elevated PSA, the biopsy that, just after New Year's, the phone call days later, advanced prostate cancer. Surgery followed, a radical prostatectomy, and with surgery came the hope that most patients carry into the operating room. The hope that the surgeon gets everything and it's taken care of. that the margins are clear, that the pathology comes back clean, and the road ahead, while maybe long, is manageable. We held on to that hope. And then the post-surgical pathology came back. The cancer had not been fully removed. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that story today. That's a full video on its own, and it's coming soon. What does matter for this story is what that pathology report meant for August, for Alaska, for this trip, for the suite and the Princess Star and the glaciers and the whale watching and the 30 years we were supposed to be celebrating. It meant we had a decision to make. Here's what I want you to understand about that decision and how it happened. There was no dramatic conversation, no single moment where one of us sat the other one down and said, "We need to talk about the cruise." It wasn't like that at all. If I'm being honest, it was more like we both arrived at the same place at the same time. There was no meeting. There was no agenda. It was the way 30 years of knowing someone creates a kind of silent communication that doesn't require a word. We looked at each other after the pathology results, and we both already knew. We knew the uncertainty ahead was simply too significant. The treatment decisions still being made were too consequential. We knew that the idea of being on a ship in Alaska in August, weeks into whatever came next, while managing recovery and monitoring and follow-up appointments and a treatment timeline that hadn't even been fully written yet, it just wasn't the responsible thing to do. And we've never been irresponsible people. But I do want to be honest about something. Part of us, a real part, not a small part, did not want to cancel. Part of me wanted to say, we're going. We earned this. 30 years earned this. Cancer doesn't get to take this too. And I think Sue felt the same exact way. There was a version of this conversation where we maybe talked ourselves into going, where we said, we'll manage it, we'll figure it out on the ship, we'll make it work, like we've always done. But we didn't say that, but we did think it. Oh, we thought it. And I think it's important to name that. The conflicted feeling of making the right decision while grieving the decision you wished you could have made instead. Because if you're navigating something similar right now, a trip, an event, a milestone, that cancer or some other illness has forced you to reconsider, I want you to know that that grief of making the right call is real. It counts. You're allowed to mourn. You're allowed to mourn it even when you don't know if it was right thing to do or not. We made the call. We canceled the cruise. And for a few days, it felt like cancer had yet taken one more thing. I've thought a lot recently about our 30th anniversary is going to look like now. It won't be a suite on a cruise ship in Alaska. I know that. It won't be glaciers and whale watching, and it won't be sightseeing in Seattle. It won't be the grand celebration we planned. And I'm not going to pretend that that's okay in a way that some people sometimes pretend things are okay when they're really not. It's not okay. It's a loss. It's a real one. 30 years deserved Alaska. Sue deserved Alaska. But here's what I've come to understand in the months since we made the call. 30 years doesn't live in a cruise, doesn't live in a suite or an excursion. As beautiful as all that would have been, 30 years lives across from the person sitting across from you when you get the pathology report and the trip gets canceled and the road ahead is uncertain and she doesn't hesitate one beat, not for a second. If this video resonated with you, if you've had to cancel a dream because life had other plans, leave a comment below. Tell me what it was. I genuinely want to know. And I want this community to know that they're not alone in it. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this video with someone who might need it. You know, I wrote an earlier video that Sue is my soft place to land, and that's still so true. It's been true, if I'm being honest, for 30 years. Alaska didn't happen on schedule, but 30 years happened. Every single day of it. And that, on its own, is something. I want to say clearly, before I close this video, we are going to Alaska. Not on the scheduled plan that we had, not on the ship that we booked, not in August that we reserved, but we are going. The refund is still sitting there. The dream is certainly still there. Sue's excitement, that particular kind of excitement that I described earlier, that's sitting there too, waiting. I don't know what the treatment road ahead looks like in full. I don't know what the next set of results will say or what decisions will follow. I'm navigating uncertainty in a way I've never navigated it before, but I do know this. There is still an Alaska in our future. And Sue and I will be on a ship together, watching the glaciers, seeing the wildlife and all the other beautiful things that Alaska has to offer. And by that time, we will have earned it twice. One for the 30 years and once for everything that came after. And when that day comes, you can bet we will be filming every single minute for this channel. That is a promise. If you're watching this because you've had to cancel something that mattered, a trip, a milestone, a celebration where life got in the way, I want you to hear this. The grief of that cancellation is legitimate. You don't have to minimize it. You don't have to be grateful it was only a trip and not something worse. Loss is loss. And losing a milestone you earned that counts. It counts. Grieve it properly. And then, when you're ready, put it back on the calendar. Not because you're guaranteed to get there. Look, none of us are guaranteed anything. But because having something on the horizon, something to move toward, is the one thing that keeps us moving at all. Alaska is on our horizon. Now find yours. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about the test that almost failed me and how you need to become your own best advocate. The things you only learn by going through it. It's an important video, and if I'm being honest, it's real. My name is Mike Jones, and this is Jonesing for the Journey. And so, the adventure continues.